If you had asked me when I was 40 what I thought perimenopause was going to be like, I would have very confidently said, oh, maybe when I'm in my late 40s, I'm going to get some hot flashes and night sweats because I recall my mother having hot flashes. And then my period's going to get a little irregular. And then one day, shortly after, it's just going to disappear. And then voila, I'm going to be in menopause. Well, that is not what happened. It was far from what happened. And keep in mind, at this point, I had been in the health field for over 20 years. And I had been practicing as a nutritionist that specialized in women's weight loss and hormonal weight loss resistance for over 5 years. And I still thought that that is what perimenopause was and was going to be like for me because I was healthy. I had been following a paleo-based diet for over 10 years. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke anymore. I didn't do any of the bad stuff that I did in my 20s. That door had been closed. I was really so dialed in with my diet. I was exercising. I was watching my stress. I was watching my hormones even. I had optimized my thyroid. I thought I had it figured out that I was not going to go through anything terrible when it came to perimenopause and menopause. And that is not what happened. And what shocks me is how many intelligent, health-conscious women thought the same thing. And that is not what their reality was when perimenopause did hit. I get constantly, I don't know if I'm in perimenopause. Usually they don't even use the word perimenopause. It's, I don't know what is happening to my body. I feel like something has taken over my body. Is this hormones? Is there something wrong with my hormones? Am I too young for perimenopause? Do I need HRT? Do I need to change my diet? Do I need to fast more? All of these things. I get all of these questions all the time. I was just in Vegas for a business conference. I went for dinner with a group of women that were all in either perimenopause or menopause. These were highly intelligent women. They were running very successful, 7-figure businesses. They were all very health conscious. They listened to all the podcasts. They had podcasts themselves. They are around. They're on social media with all of the stuff that's coming out around perimenopause and menopause. And yet, every single woman at that table, minus myself, was confused about where she was at with her hormones and in her hormone journey. Some of them had tried HRT and then gone back off. Some of them had been put on pellets and then were like, oh my gosh, no. They went back off and they thought, nope, this isn't for them. This isn't my time to be on pellets or whatever it was that they were taking. They had been to their physicians. They had been to functional doctors, and they were some of them still were on HRT, but still very confused at what they were taking and if it was working for them. And they were still experiencing a ton of different symptoms. So they were just going, what is happening here, Karen? And, I made them all whip out their labs. It was hilarious. I gave them each a little mini coaching call right there at the dinner table, looking at all their labs from the past year and telling them, okay, here's what I want you to do. And then throughout that weekend, I had husbands coming up to me because they knew what I did, telling me and asking me, my wife, I think, is in perimenopause. She doesn't know what to do. I had one fella come up and he said, okay, I think my wife needs you. She is just really going through it right now. She's 43 and just, she's really feeling a lot of changes. She's booked an appointment with a hormone clinic, but she just really doesn't know what to do. Do you think you could help her? So I'm texting with this complete stranger, asking her what her symptoms are, and then getting her on the straight and narrow and explaining to her, this is the phase that you are in. You are in perimenopause. You are in this first phase. Here's what's happening, and here's what you're going to do to help yourself. And then so this got me thinking after. I kept thinking, I can't believe just how much women still don't know, and how much we still don't know about perimenopause. And considering that what I went through 10 years ago, or not quite 8 years ago now, with my own journey and how I didn't know, it's like, of course women don't know. It's just the information is not out there enough yet. And so today's podcast is going to be a guide that I can send you to say, okay, you're wondering where you're at in this whole peri and menopause hormone thing in your 40s, 50s. Here, listen to this so that you can understand what is happening to your body and you're going to know what to do about it. Okay? No woman should be guessing her way through this. Perimenopause is not a slow decline. Well, it is, but it's more of a hormone storm that happens. Some are declining, but some are also going up and some are going down. Some are up and down, like from day to day, month to month. It is a crazy hormonal hurricane. Now, my own storm, when it hit me, it was not just a couple hot flashes and a missing period. Number one, sleep. Now, I'd always had trouble sleeping, always, like for a very long time, but it's really took a turn. And very quickly, and suddenly not only was I having troubles falling asleep, which I had always had, but now I was waking up at that 2 to 3 a.m. frickin' wake up call and not being able to go back to sleep. And I know so many of you have the same problem. Weight gain, 15 pounds, ladies, 15 pounds all around the midsection within months of this happening to me. Months. I hadn't changed, of course, anything. I had not changed my diet. I had not changed my exercise routine. Nothing. I remember thinking at that time that maybe it was because I was super stressed out at that time. That's not why. I mean, my reasoning, it's a whole nother story, and I'm not going to get into it in this podcast, but I was trying to go, I think this is what we do, right? We try and sit there going, okay, maybe I feel this way because of XYZ that's happening in my life, whether that's stress, job change, divorce, not sleeping well, not eating well, whatever it is. You try to pinpoint something like, okay, I think it's this. This is why I feel the way I do. Unpredictable periods. That was like my periods stopped for 2 months at the time, just suddenly went from like 28 days perfect to I didn't have a period for a couple months. And then I started getting a period every 2 weeks, and then it was every 3 weeks, and then it would go missing again for a couple months. It was all over the map. And that part I did reverse. I reversed most of this. I had itchy skin, like really itchy skin. Of course, like libido, no, there was definitely no libido, and I did not feel like having sex either way because I was 15 pounds overweight and felt awful about myself and how I looked. So wasn't exactly feeling sexy. Brain fog in the sense of I couldn't find my words. I have always had dyslexia. My dyslexia got way worse. I couldn't type. I could barely type, text, things like that. Like, thank God for auto spell. Short-term memory. Short-term memory was absolutely terrible. I couldn't remember anything. That part was pretty scary. And then I had low-grade depression, and I had never felt much depression ever in my life. That was never something that I suffered with. Even with PMS, I'd get a little bit, my mood would get low, but true blue depression is just not something that I thankfully didn't have to deal with in my life until this point. And then I couldn't get off my couch. And I had no motivation. I didn't want to be running my business. I certainly didn't feel like helping other people because I felt like such garbage myself and was so depressed. And this is coming from someone who understood hormones and was still in denial that this was, I was like, what is happening? And, eventually I figured it out. Once the period was going and the hot flashes really, went up, then I was like, oh, I think I'm going into menopause right now. This was at 42. Now, that is young, and that is not common to go into menopause at 42 that fast. And I eventually figured this out, and it's why I do what I do right now. I am such a big advocate for this education, because I was able to course correct, and I got back to what is called phase 1, perimenopause. And this is not a scientific term. This is my own terms. There's phase 1, 2, and 3 of perimenopause. There's probably a lot more, but we're going to chunk them down into 3 phases. I went from no phase to phase 3 within months because of something that had happened to me. I was able to reverse all of them. And I then was in phase 1 for a very long period of time. I was able to regulate the cycle for a number of years and get rid of all of these nasty symptoms. And I'm still flourishing. I feel like I still just get better and better. I've had little ups and downs where I've had to course correct. And now I'm in full-blown menopause now. So my phases are over, and I was able to sail through the last 8 years really, really well and thriving. And I'm telling you that because that you understand there is hope here. I promise you, you do not have to go through this. And once you understand what's happening, you are going to flourish as well if you take action. So perimenopause isn't a decline first. It's fluctuation for a very long time. And average perimenopausal years is not a couple of months. Average is 8 to 10 years. So a decade of your life, ladies. This is a long time. A decade of your life. A decade of fluctuating and dropping hormones. And here's the key. Progesterone is the first hormone to consistently drop. And it starts much earlier than most women expect. The noticeable decline typically begins around ages 38 to 42. That's like the magic. I wouldn't say it's magical, but those are the age that I have women coming to me. It's like 38. 38 just seems to be this trigger for so many women. They turn 38 and they're like, "Oh, what just happened?" But progesterone typically has already started to dip before you're 38. We know this, right? If you're trying to get pregnant and you're over the age of 35, what do your doctors tell you? They're like, hey, time's a ticking, don't wait any longer. You're going to be you're going to have a geriatric pregnancy. And this is because we come into this world with a certain amount of eggs. And once those eggs are gone, they are gone. There's no bringing them back. And when you don't, if you don't ovulate, because there's not a lot of eggs left, you won't ovulate. And through ovulation is where you make the bulk of your progesterone. So as the egg store is going down, and this is different for every woman, but generally we start to see that dip really dipping between 35 and 40. That's why they're like, if you're going to have kids, like, please make sure they're before the age of 40 if you can. And I know we're seeing a lot of older women now trying to get pregnant, but ideally you want it to be before the age of 35, really. Actually, ideally, this is crazy sounding. Ideally, our bodies are most fertile, and when we should be trying to have babies is like when we're late teens to mid 20s. That's when everything's ripe for the picking. Let's just when there's lots of eggs to be had and you're going to be most fertile. We're just not mentally there anymore. And so now and we used to have kids all the time when we were in our 18, 19 years old. It was very normal for women to be married at that point and to start having children. Now we're just getting later and later and later, which is fine. But just so you know, that's when we are ideally supposed to be having children to go with our biology. Okay. So as progesterone's coming down in your 30s and getting less and less production of progesterone because you're not ovulating as often anymore, well, progesterone is your calming hormone. It helps support your sleep, stabilizes mood. It's very anti-anxiety. It counterbalances estrogen. So estrogen is a growth hormone and progesterone puts the brakes on that growth. And so there's balance. We don't want too much growth, but we don't want too little growth either. We want both, but we want that progesterone in the mix to help control things and keep everything in check. It supports your thyroid and your metabolism. We see that the basal body temperature after you ovulate, if you ovulate, goes up. So you can think of that as your metabolic rate. So your metabolism heats up once progesterone's on board. So if you don't ovulate, you're not going to produce the bulk of that progesterone, which then is going to affect the mood, the sleep, the estrogen growth, thyroid function, and metabolism. When progesterone starts falling, your nervous system feels it almost immediately, but it can be very easily brushed off because it's PMS. That's how it shows up. And most of us have we've experienced PMS since the time we were young till we're in our 40s. So it's normalized, right? PMS is normalized. And so if the PMS gets worse, we just chalk it up to, oh, it's just PMS. But this is your body signaling to you that if that PMS is getting worse, it's your body signaling to you that, hey, there's something going on here that wasn't going on before. And pay attention, especially if it starts to happen consistently. Estrogen, on the other hand, it doesn't just drop in early perimenopause like progesterone, it swings. High one cycle, lower the next, then high again. And those swings can cause breast tenderness, mood shifts, heavy periods, brain fog, and even that itchy skin. So many women notice that it starts to, that's a funny one, the itchy skin and itchy inner ears too. That's a very common symptom of estrogen dropping is itchy inner ears and the itchy skin. So it's got a pattern. And there's 3 phases of perimenopause in general for most women. It, of course, can vary. The average age of menopause is 52. The average perimenopause transition lasts 8 to 10 years. That means most women begin this transition in their early to mid 40s, and some start as early as their mid 30s. These are averages. Your timeline may differ, but most women fall somewhere in this range. So phase 1, early perimenopause, average age 38 to 43. Now remember, this is happening probably before you're 38, but 38 seems to be when most women start to notice some changes happening. Progesterone starts dropping. Estrogen is still being made at this point, and sometimes in like super healthy, occasionally too high amounts when there's true estrogen dominance, which I've gone into at length on other podcasts. But typically women have very normal levels of estrogen. It's just that their progesterone starts to drop, so they don't have progesterone balancing out that estrogen, which then gives you symptoms of estrogen dominance. But you don't truly have too much estrogen. It's not balanced with progesterone. Because progesterone supports sleep and mood stability, this is where I see sleep disruption, anxiety, worsening PMS, heavier periods with more clotting and cramping, breast tenderness, migraines, and subtle weight changes. I'm talking 5 pounds. It's kind of like 5 pounds comes out of nowhere. You hit 38, you hit 40, and suddenly you're like, oh, I've gained 5 pounds. What the heck just happened? This is progesterone dropping. And this is often when women are told, you're too young for perimenopause, or they're given the offer of an ablation or birth control pills, and it's just all targeted at masking what's going on, putting a little Band-Aid on it, with the Band-Aid being sometimes a hysterectomy, unfortunately, an ablation, the birth control pills, or a sleeping pill, or an antidepressant, or an anti-anxiety medication. Those are the Band-Aids that are most commonly given out if a woman goes into the doctor's office and complains of any of these things happening. And cycles may still look normal, as far as like they're still coming every 28 days. Some women don't get the super heavy bleed. A lot of women do, but some do, some don't. Labs can look extremely normal, especially because sometimes you're going to ovulate and sometimes you're not. Doctors always test on the wrong days. And so labs are very hard to go by in this phase of perimenopause. You really need to find somebody that knows what they're looking for in your labs and knows when to test you in your cycle, maybe doing a specialty test like a Dutch test or something like that, or a saliva test. Okay, phase 2, mid-perimenopause. Average age, 44 to about 48. Now, this is when estrogen really starts to go on the wild roller coaster ride. It's up, it's down, it's all around. And you can go from 1 month being like feeling like you're super estrogen dominant, you're bleeding out everywhere, you're bleeding every 2 weeks, you're getting period cramps, breast tenderness, all the horrible things of estrogen dominance. And then the next month, you're hot flashing, your libido's tanked, you've got brain fog, you can't find your words, you're depressed, your period goes missing, or it's super, super light. And then you'll go like 30 days without a period. Then you go 60 days without a period. Then you'll go 90 days. And then it'll go back and it'll be every 3 weeks. It's different for every woman in this mid-perimenopause because of these estrogen swings. Some women get them really bad and other women don't get them bad. And it's just, for some women, it's this nice, easy, just slow decline. Well, it's not nice and easy, but it's just a nice, slow decline rather than this up and down crazy roller coaster ride. And it just gets depleted until their period just goes missing completely. And then voila, they're in menopause. But most women, they're going to get some fluctuations happening in here with estrogen. And this is very normal. But this is also when we really want to be doing some testing. And you're going to hear doctors say, well, what's the point in testing? Because estrogen's all over the map and we can't get a clear reading on it. I disagree. I think, and I've done enough labs to know this, is you can get a lot from labs and from talking to that woman. Find out, where's her follicular stimulating hormone? Where's her LH? Where's the testosterone at? Where's the thyroid at? Maybe test the adrenal system at this point. How is she metabolizing this estrogen? If she is having these swings, well, then that tells us that, if you test 1 month and it's high and then the next month it's low, if you do that much testing, there's a lot of these little devices, at-home devices now that will test your hormones every day for you. So you might have one of those and you're going to see these like up, down estrogen levels. But that tells me then that, okay, now's the time to be really dialed in with your HRT so you can stop the crazy roller coaster, or at least slow it down so it's a nice little child's roller coaster ride rather than the freak you out, up, down, turn you upside down, loop-de-loop roller coaster. And there's so many options at this point that women are not being told about that they can use to really help this time in their life. Some of it's just accepting that, okay, my period's going to probably be a little bit all over the map and this is normal and it could be for a couple of years. We can embrace that. If you're getting consistent hot flashes, night sweats, there's lots that you can do to help control that, including blood sugar stability, watching your stress, watching your caffeine intake. There's some amazing supplements that you can take that can help with hot flashes. Using a nice baby dose of estradiol every single day can help with the swinging. I just went through this in a podcast about HRT timing. So there's lots of biohacks that we can do for mid-perimenopause. But you really got to be dialed in. You got to be testing. You got to be watching your symptoms, tracking your period on a period app, and know that you don't have to put up with this. This isn't a this isn't a time where you have to, grit your teeth and get through it. Absolutely not. You don't have to suffer. It just blows my mind how many women choose to suffer. So 44 to 48, you're looking for that, the cycle really change. A lot of changes start happening with the cycle in the phase 2. Okay. And they go shorter first typically and for a long time. And then they start to get, as you get towards 48, they're going to start to get fewer and farther between, and they're going to start lightening up is usually what happens. This is when we see rapid weight gain. Midsection weight gain starts to pile on. You start to get the belly, the meno belly, the itchy skin, lower libido, the vaginal dryness. A lot of fatigue can happen at this time. Mental health issues can start happening at this time. So more depression, more anxiety. Women will notice ADD, ADHD symptoms getting worse if they've been diagnosed with that. This is also when testosterone begins to decline for a lot of women. Testosterone's a funny one. It can happen in early, it could happen in phase 1, it can happen in phase 3, it can happen in menopause, or not happen at all. But we do tend to see it probably the most in this age range, in phase 2, where we start to see it going down, and it typically needs to start being optimized at this point. And so be watching your free and total testosterone levels, watch for symptoms of motivation dips, muscle tone changes, just drive in general seems to get just bleh, flattens out. Everything just starts to go down. It's like a dimming that happens. That's a great word for it. It's just like everything's just starting to be turned down. And it's like, and thyroid function gets very fragile at this point as well, because you really don't have much progesterone at all. Cortisol typically goes up at this point, and cortisol, when it's elevated, will affect thyroid conversion. So you have many different things kind of adding to the slowing down of the thyroid function. So be testing your full thyroid panel. Even if you've never had a thyroid problem, we typically start to see that conversion of T4 to T3 slowing down. And so be watching those numbers, test free T4 and free T3 and reverse T3. Pay close attention, because if that T3 starts to go down, you want to be very careful, very watchful, because this can cause a lot of weight gain, a lot of fatigue, and it can just add to this pile that's already happening. And so a lot of the time, if we can optimize the progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, we do see that thyroid starts to pick up for a lot of women, and it'll go back to normal, and they don't need to replace the thyroid. But it's just keep in mind that these are all working synergistically together, and they can all start affecting each other. Start watching your insulin levels, start watching your cholesterol levels. So labs, they're important during this time. These are all things that we can be testing and looking at and trying to prevent them from either getting worse or from happening at all. Now, this is when women will start to ask, do I need HRT? And if they've questioned it up to this point, they're like, okay, I think I'm ready. Please, somebody help me with some HRT. And I will tell you that the majority of women in this age range do need HRT. There is a small percentage of women that are not good candidates for HRT, but for majority of women, it is safe and it is beneficial during this time period, during 44 to 48. Not to say you can't use it earlier, because you certainly can, and it all depends on the person. So if you've started progesterone in your early 40s, now you're into your 44 to 48 years, then we start to look at these other hormones, really start watching them. We obviously want to be watching them the whole time, but really now's the time to be paying more attention to them. And then replace where needed. So there we've got phase 1, phase 2, phase 2, things are going on the roller coaster. Phase 3, that roller coaster starts to calm down. And this is where we just now start to see the estrogen just on a steady decline. You can still get little baby fluctuations for some, but for most women, as they're reaching age 50, they really start to see things go down with their estrogen, and the FSH will start to go up, and the estradiol, which is what we're watching, is going to start to go down. For some women, estrone will stay up, but estradiol goes down. Some estradiol, estrone, and estriol all go down at this time. And so this is when we'll see an uptick in hot flashes and night sweats, so temperature dysregulation, a lot more vaginal dryness, urinary tract infections, chronic yeast infections, joint pain, low back pain, frozen shoulder, very, very common from the loss of estrogen. So frozen shoulder, just general, knee pain, elbow pain, whatever joint pain, rise in cholesterol, rise in insulin, itchy skin, itchy inner ears, deeper libido changes, more persistent brain fog, where it can become really scary for some women. And for many women, I think the stat is 50% start to really be affected in their moods. And so estrogen is really important for the production of serotonin and dopamine. Progesterone's very important for GABA. So we start to experience a lot more mental health problems. And for some women, it's severe mental health problems that can arise. And so you really want to be paying attention to that because it can get scary. I know for myself, it was scary. I really did not mentally feel well when my estrogen plummeted. And I notice if I don't take my estrogen or, I needed to increase it or for whatever reason, that is the one hormone that has the most dramatic effect on my mental health out of all three of the, like testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. Thyroid as well. Thyroid, when it goes down and I'm not optimized, I get a lot of depression. So I would say thyroid and estrogen. But for some women, it's the progesterone. They get really heightened anxiety from the loss of progesterone. And they don't notice much mentally with the loss of estrogen. For some women, it's both. And they're both going to contribute to it. So really, really something that you want to pay attention to, because the first line of treatment is always going to be an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety. And I'm not saying that there's anything bad with taking those. By all means, they can really help people. But, if this is something that's just suddenly come up and you've hit the age 49 or 48 or whatever, 42, then I would highly recommend looking first to the hormones and addressing the hormones, optimizing the hormones. And then if you're still not mentally feeling well, then, you obviously speak to your doctor through this whole thing, but you just want to always consider that it could be hormonal. Okay? Please do not take this as medical advice, especially when it comes to mental health problems, you guys. Please be smarter than that. Always work with your physician when it comes to mental health issues, okay? Okay. So many women in this late perimenopause phase are under-prescribed estrogen. Once again, go listen to my HRT timing podcast, and I will convince you otherwise. I'm sure that now is the time to throw in the estrogen, even if it's at that low dose. Like I said, phase 2, some women they don't need it, but some do in phase 2, but majority of women need it in phase 3 because you're catching it, right? It's on the decline. So just having that steady dose of estradiol can, once again, slow down the swings so they're not as high and low. And it can help eradicate these symptoms. And as well, it's very preventative of other things coming down the pipeline, like bone loss, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, all the big killers. So much of that can be helped by using estradiol HRT in perimenopause. It actually rapidly slows biological aging. Estradiol in perimenopause. I just did a podcast about this on the glycan aging in menopause. It's very scary how fast we rapidly age in perimenopause unless we use estradiol HRT. Then we don't see the accelerated aging. The other thing that they saw in that study was women that used estradiol HRT had a decrease in all-cause mortality by 40%. That is huge. Huge. So timing is everything right now. Once again, you can't supplement your way out of this. There are supplements that if you're choosing not to do HRT that could help support this. phase. It's not going to replace your hormones. It's not going to do what the hormones are going to do, but it can help with some of the outward symptoms. So if you are choosing not to do HRT, please know that there are some things out there that can be good to help minimize these side effects from the fluctuating and the loss of hormones. Now, it's not just one hormone. This is a whole network, right? It's not just estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We want to look at everything. And the loss of these hormones stresses the entire hormonal system out. You can't diet, you can't supplement, you can't fast, you can't biohack, nothing. Every single one of you is going to lose ovarian function. You will not ovulate anymore. And there's nothing you can do to bring back ovarian function. Okay? And there comes a point, and I see this in extremely disciplined, health-conscious women, where no matter how clean your lifestyle is, you will still have the effects of hormonal loss. Some will feel it, 80% of women feel it, but some, it's all internal. They don't even get hot flashes or weight gain or anything. But that doesn't mean that the inside isn't rapidly aging. That happens across the board, unless you replace the hormones. And that's going to piss a lot of anti-HRT people off by me saying that, but it's the truth. Okay, and now a note on sleep, because I know that sleep is a huge issue during all three phases. If you're under 45 and your sleep is breaking mainly in the second half of your cycle after ovulation, progesterone is often the first thing to explore. Here's why. We produce the bulk of our progesterone after ovulation. As we enter our 30s and early 40s, that egg supply naturally declines, like I talked about. When ovulation becomes inconsistent, so does progesterone production. So months you'll ovulate and feel fine, and you'll think the new supplement or the new diet is working. Lifestyle absolutely supports hormonal system, but it can't replace progesterone your body is no longer making consistently. If sleep is breaking every single night of the month, regardless of the cycle phase, now we widen the lens. Estradiol swings and loss, cortisol patterns, thyroid, growth hormone, melatonin, insulin, all of those hormones can start to affect your quality of sleep. So don't just think it's progesterone. So many women are like, oh, I rely on my progesterone in order to sleep, so I need to take it every single night. That shouldn't be the case. You went your whole life, your fertile life, only producing that progesterone in the second half of your cycle. So if it's happening just in the second half of the cycle and you're still cycling, then yeah, it is probably progesterone loss. But not if it's happening every single night. Progesterone for sure can be a piece of that puzzle, but we need to start looking at all of these other hormones and their impact on circadian rhythm, on your blood sugar, on your stress management. Right now, for a lot of these women, they have a hard time just managing stress without the buffer of hormones in your body, helping with the neurotransmitters. So now stress goes up, cortisol is dysregulated. It's going to affect your sleep. So cortisol is now coming on at 3 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. when it should be coming on. So I want you to make sure that you pay attention to all of the hormones, not just progesterone, if your sleep is being affected all the time. So understanding your phase, it's the starting point. You've got to know, what stage are you in? And you may have to disregard the ages that I've told you that are most common, because some women, like I said, can start earlier, can start later. So listen to the symptoms of each phase and see where it is that what you fit into. If you're in phase 1 and you've got that, second half of your cycle that you're not sleeping, you've got worsening PMS, heavy periods, unexplained weight gain, anxiety, progesterone is often the first place to look. And you've got options. Talk to your doctor and don't let them hand you birth control or offer you an ablation. Well, an ablation can actually be okay. It doesn't solve the root of the problem. It's not giving you back progesterone, but it can stop bleeding really well. And if you're a woman that's like bleeding out and, oh my God, I just heard horror stories of bloodbaths of women that just like they're bleeding constantly. Their iron's super low. They're just, they can't leave the house. They're changing their tampon every 5 minutes. If it's like that, oh my gosh, I would personally be like, give me the ablation and the progesterone. But birth control, hysterectomy, sleeping pills, antidepressants, anti-anxieties. Ask your doctor if they would consider first bioidentical progesterone, because if this is just all these things just kind of came on board with turning 40 or whatever, because you're in phase 1, then get to the root and see if progesterone helps first. Brand names. So there's lots of prescription options for progesterone. You can get compounded progesterone cream. You can do vaginal suppositories. The most common is oral form. So oral progesterone. Brand names are Perimetrium and Utrogestin, which is mostly what you're going to see overseas, like Europe, UK area. That's what it's called over there, is Utrogestin, and that is a bioidentical oral progesterone, micronized progesterone. And then, of course, you've got the over-the-counter options, which include progesterone cream, progesterone oil. You can't get oral form over-the-counter in the US. You can only get transdermal. We have both of those. We've got a progesterone cream and I have a progesterone melatonin oil, because melatonin drops as well. And that can actually help a lot of women sleep. And you can get those without prescription. So that's over at the midlifesolutions.org shop. But the key is just get it. It doesn't necessarily matter where from. I mean, you obviously want to get a good source, but go to your family doctor. See if you can get it covered. British Columbia, we just passed a bill that all menopause hormone replacement therapy, estrogen, progesterone, hormone replacement therapy is free for women in British Columbia. So go to your family doctor and say, get me on this and get me on it for free. Hallelujah. That was super exciting. If you're in phase 1, make sure you're using that progesterone days 14 to 28. Follow the natural cycle. It's very important. And the great thing is you should feel it very quickly. Most women notice a difference within that first cycle use of progesterone. Some will notice it within days. Some notice it the minute they put it on. They can put it on and they feel the anti-anxiety effects. They feel calmer. They can sleep better. Their PMS isn't as bad. Their period isn't as bad. They're not bleeding as heavy. So pay attention to what it does for you. Some women, it takes a couple of months of use, but for most women, I would say it's pretty darn fast to notice. Okay. Now, if you're in phase 2 or 3, symptoms happening all month long, cycles shifting dramatically. We got the brain fog, the vaginal changes, the rapid midsection weight gain. It's so great. That's when structure matters more. We want to be testing at the right time in your cycle. We want to be testing the right markers, not just estrogen and progesterone. We want to test FSH, LH. What's your testosterone doing? What's your thyroid doing? What's your insulin doing? What's your cholesterol doing? Get the labs done. A lot of practitioners don't say, why would we bother testing? Your hormones are all over the place. No, you can still get a lot from testing. And then you're not guessing, because a lot of these symptoms overlap. Some women will get hot flashes from the drop of progesterone. So what if their estrogen's totally fine, but they're getting hot flashes and they don't need to be put on estrogen? And we don't want extra estrogen if we don't need it. And so testing, I think, is very key. And then paying attention to what's happening. There could be cycles where you know that you've ovulated and you feel good and you're like, I don't think I need my hormones as much right now. I've done that for the last 8 years, where I'm like, I don't think I need as much estrogen, and I'll lower my dose. Or I feel like, something's just changed. I need to increase my dose. I feel like I need extra estrogen right now. So pay attention, tune into your body. It's really important. Talk to your physician about using low-dose estrogen during this time. Some women, it's just phase 3 that need that, but occasionally women in phase 2 need it as well. Support. Go back, listen to the timing of HRT episode. And then if you're still thinking like, okay, I understand phase 1, 2, and 3, but I still don't know where I'm at because a lot of these symptoms are overlapping each other. Yeah. Then I want you to take my quiz. I whipped up a quiz just for this episode that is, are you in perimenopause, and what phase are you in? I'm going to link to it in the show notes. Go take the quiz. I mean, it is just a quiz. It's not diagnostic, but it could at least help to kind of, get you on the right track, a good starting point. And then you can be like, okay, I think it's phase 2. I think it's phase whatever. And then you can start applying some of these tips to help you get out of feeling the way you're feeling or going through what you're going through in these phases. Phase 1, progesterone drops first. Phase 2, estrogen swings and gets loud. Phase 3, estrogen trends downward. When you understand the phase, the storm will calm. You stop feeling like things are chaotic. You start feeling like yourself again. And this is a time where women will say, I feel like something has taken over my body. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm looking at in the mirror anymore. This is not me. And I don't want any of you to feel like that. And know that you don't have to, that there are solutions. You just got to figure out what's going to work for you. And I hope I've given you enough tips today to go on and get started feeling better and optimizing your hormones so you can be like me and go through all 3 phases and just sail through. I mean, I feel better now than I did at 42 when I hit the early menopause. I definitely look better. My mental health is better. I'm stronger. Like, everything is better. And I'm going to be 50 in a month and a half. So if I had it as bad as I did, and I came out the other side, and I've been able to get through the last 8 years feeling this great, so can you. Thanks for listening.